If you're a gardener like me, you like getting free stuff, right? Well, what if I told you there was a means of being able to get free plants all the time, year round? It exists, and it's called plant propagation, specifically through cutting. That's what I'm going to show you today and show you a couple of methods that I've used throughout my homestead. So, what is plant propagation? Well, plant propagation is just a means of creating new plants from existing plants. And that can be done via seeds or that can be done through plant cuttings. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today, the latter, focusing on plant propagations through cutting. Now, here's a perfect example. This is actually a cabbage plant that's been growing for 4 months indoors. This is actually propagated from a root stem from a cabbage that I previously cooked. Here's another great example. This is actually a sweet mint plant that I originally picked up a year ago from my local hardware store from their clearance section. The original plant is what you see in the green container, but I have propagated off of that plant at least 20 times. I've given cuttings to friends. I've grown mint all throughout my house in containers. If you want to know more about propagating mint, I want you to check out this video here. Also, do take in consideration when propagating mint, there is a dark side. You can check that video out here. Last but most certainly not least is yet another herb, and that's basil. As you can see, this basil plant had already started bolting, and we have flowering and seeding that's taking place. This basil plant is maybe over maybe 2 years old, and I've propagated at least 10 to 15 times off of it. It's so easy to propagate, I can't stop propagating. And I just keep making clones and clones and clones of it. And that's what actually I'm going to show you we're going to be propagating today. It can be done in soil or water. Now, as you can see here, these are two basil plants that have already been propagated in water. They've been sitting inside in a windowsill, soaking up the sun and the nutrients, and we have a pretty healthy root system going on there. So what I'm going to do today is be transferring these two into soil. I'm going to be using 2 nitrogen sticks as well as a little bit of rooting power to kind of lessen the shock from going from water into soil. The soil mixture that I'm using to pot the 2 basil plants is actually just a mixture of vegetable soil along with about 50% organic compost. I'm going to be taking my rooting powder and actually just sprinkling a little bit in the hole that I've made for the roots to go. You don't need a large portion of it. The root hormone is a way of being able to stimulate the roots to grow once you transition them from the water into the soil. But a cheaper method of being able to do that is just by trimming the edge of the root before you place it in the soil. It'll have the same effect. Along with that, I'm going to take my nitrogen stick here. I'll place that down at the bottom of this pot. Now, these pots that I picked up are actually from Dollar Tree. They were $1.25. As we know, that Dollar Tree is no longer $1 anymore. But they were $1.25, and they're 2 self-wicking pots, so you don't run the risk of overwatering. Now that we have our nitrogen stick and our rooting hormone in the hole, I'm going to slowly pull the plant up out of the water because you want to be delicate with these roots. Remember, in water, they're going to be a little bit weaker. Gently place it down into the hole, and now pack my soil around it nice and tight. Not too tight. All right. There we go. Now on to the second one. We're going to rinse and repeat. Root system on this one is a little bit longer. That's okay. C'est très bon. There we are. Good to go. Now I'm going to take the water that both plants have actually been sitting in and just use it to dampen our soil. You don't want to overwater. That's why I'm using the self-wicking pots. Boom. And now, there we go. We got the band all back together again. We have our 2 propagations sitting right next to our main plant here. So now my 200 milliliter bottles are empty. So you know what that means. Time to rinse, repeat, and propagate again. It's just so easy. I can't stop doing it. If you have any questions or thoughts about anything I've shared today, make sure that you drop me a line in the comments and I'll be sure to get back with you. So when cutting off the main plant to make a propagation, what you want to do is you want to pick a stem that has at least about a good 4 to 5 inches of length on it. From there, you make a diagonal cut, and there we are. This actually has several stems and a little bit of flowers growing off of it as well. But this is going to make a superb cutting for propagation. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and get our second one. I don't want to use. Boom shakalaka. Well, get it in the shot. And there we go. Now, what we're looking for when we're talking about cuttings is you want to have a cutting that has these little nodes at the bottom. These nodes are going to be where your roots are actually starting from. You would think you would come from down here from the stem, but they're actually coming from where those leaves come from. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim those off once we place those in our bottle of water. Now that we've pre-filled our bottles with some regular tap water, there's no special water here. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to take these bottom leaves off. Snip, snip. Here we go. Because again, this is where our roots are going to grow from. And then we just place it down in the water. Now, of course, we're going to fill this a little bit more because as we can see now, the nodes that I just cut from here, let's get that shot in there, is not reaching all the way down into the water. So we're going to pour a little bit more water in there, fill it up to the brim. Now, I know some of my seasoned gardeners might be looking and saying, hey, you have rooting hormone. Why aren't you just propagating these cuttings by placing them directly into the soil? Well, for me, growing in water is just easier. Plus, rooting hormone is expensive. Remember, we're trying to garden to be more sustainable, not to spend money. And growing in water is just an easy way of being able to do this. Now, you said, hey, but you use rooting hormone only. That's just kind of to help the process. It's not necessary that I use rooting hormone when placing them in soil. That's just something I like to do. But yeah, propagating in water works for me. So that's what I go with. And in all earnest, you've heard the old phrase before, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I'm going to add a little bit of water just so those nodes can get a little bit of hydration going on there. Water is what plants crave. Now, if you're wondering, hey, what are you going to do with those cuttings, or excuse me, those clips of those leaves that you pulled off the bottom stem? I don't know, maybe dry them out, put them in a pesto, or maybe even a spaghetti sauce. Because the whole reason why we're doing this is to be able to grow herbs that we can use for our seasoning. The whole reason why we're doing this is so that we can use these herbs to cook with. I'm gonna just place them on my windowsill and give them a couple of weeks to start developing roots. As you can see, I've kind of taken over my wife's kitchen windowsill. It just gets so much good sunlight, I can't help but use it. Everything from mint propagations to more basil propagations, as you can see right over here, as well as spearmint, peppermint, and 2 big balls in the center there are apple tree cuttings. And then right over here in this bowl, let's check this out here. Watch this. Boom. As a gnat is rolling around on there, I have to get that guy off of it, but look at that. Roots are already starting. But again, remember, it's not just limited to your vegetables, your fruits, uh, and your herbs. You can even propagate your house plants as well. This is actually a pothos ivy. Look at that root system in there. That's just in water. And this is actually just a cutting from one of my main plants. So today I've shared with you a means of being able to propagate plants through either soil or water. If you found this content beneficial and something you'd like to implement in your garden, maybe consider sharing it with a friend. That's going to be it for us here at Urban Gardening with Gray. But remember, enjoy life, enjoy family, and enjoy your garden. Thanks for watching, guys.